everyone. It is 1 o'clock and we're trying to stay on schedule. We'll do our best. My name is Sharayla. I'm the Community Partners Project Manager, and I am here to introduce, and hopefully you're in the right place for, strengthening cross-team communication to improve study implementation with I'm very excited to see the presentation. To our people watching online, as an FYI, the videos may not play volume for you, but I can post the links in the chat, and they will also come out when the recording comes out. So apologies that we're unable to we're having some audio issues for our online watchers. We have two, and we'll send the links as we go along. Thank you so much. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is William Guiler. I work at the KU ADRC, stands for the Alzheimer's Dementia Research Center. Within that center, we're split up into about half a dozen research cores. That makes communication incredibly difficult, and that makes communicating for even just a singular study imperative for the success of the implementation. That's really what inspired me to present it today. And even if you're not in research, or no matter what stage you're at, basic, translational, clinical, this type of communication is going to be pivotal, and the tools I'll be presenting today in any aspect of your life. So why has communication become so important? It's because research has changed drastically over just the last few decades. I remember as an undergrad, we had a single lab space and everyone was housed in that single lab. It was just a couple of offices and we were all in there together. What that meant was we were all in person. If there were ever any communication difficulties, I could just pop my head into the PI's office and you get that instant feedback. I thought it was 10 weeks. Oh, no, the intervention's 8 weeks. Very quick, easy, no Teams, no email, no meetings. It has changed drastically. Single author publications has declined. Collaborations are on the rise. Not only that, but we're working, within an institution like the ADRC, there are multiple cores. Within an institution, there could be multiple departments working on a singular project together. And then there's also international, national collaborations that can really increase in complexity. If you think about just communicating from one institution to the other, Children's Mercy to KU, for example, you can't share documents. Emails might get blocked. Teams doesn't work. And this really impedes the implementation of the study. So top right, those are all of the cores within the ADRC. I'm using myself as an example throughout this presentation, and I really hope it can be applied to your life, whatever type of research structure that you're in. But each one of these cores has directors, some have assistant directors, then they have staff, they are large, and they all need to work together just to do a single study. It takes a cohesive team. Now, one thing I want to point out is just how rapidly communication becomes complex. In a team of 5 people, there are 10 communication channels. If you double the team size to 10, it jumps to 45 communication channels. That could be 45 emails, 45 Teams chats, 45 quick one-on-ones. That's a lot. And if this is happening across a campus, across the country, or even across the world, this becomes increasingly difficult and we suffer for it. So again, we have these multi-core, I refer to it as a core because that's in my workflow, but it might be a department, it might be an institution, it might just be working with one lab and another lab. What's also has been a blessing has also made things difficult, telework and asynchronous communication. My boss, for example, lives in Dallas. That prohibits that really informal, impromptu confirmation. When I could just go into her office and say, are we implementing that next Thursday or next Friday? Now it's a Teams message or an email or requesting to meet briefly for 10, 15 minutes. It just increases the amount of time to get that answer that's needed. It's great, because we wouldn't be able to work together if she couldn't telework. But there are drawbacks that it's become more complex and it requires these structured communication tools to keep studies moving. And we've also just become so specialized. When you think about research and where it's come into the last few decades, not only PIs within their own research, maybe focusing on a single molecule for their entire career, but you also have regulatory centers, and they become very much focused on regulatory. There's clinical research coordinators who need additional certifications, and they become really engrossed in that. And they need to communicate, and they might speak two different languages. I know when I'm speaking about neuroimaging, if I were to, for the next few minutes, just blurt out everything that happens within the neuroimaging core, it would not make a lot of sense. It would not be helpful to you. In fact, it might even be frustrating. So I need to, when I'm communicating with other cores, make sure that I'm communicating in a way that is open and allows for a feedback loop to ensure that they understand what I'm talking about. And the same goes for them as well. So why does this matter? Communication gaps increase rework and ambiguity. If you are told to do a task and you misunderstand it, or even just with your role, you filter it a certain way because you are a regulatory coordinator, a research assistant, research associate, whatever, you might get some of the details wrong and it requires you to do it again. This has happened to me a number of times. I do a literature review in a style that I did in my old lab. That's not what she wanted. I didn't ask. I didn't get that clarification. I just assumed. I filtered it based off my own previous experiences, and it cost me 4 hours of work. Had to redo it. It's frustrating. There are unclear expectations, and it can reduce efficiency, again, with that rework. There's fragmented information that affects implementation fidelity. This is really important when you think about how information flows, especially about study changes from top to bottom. You're going to have an executive meeting, and so the executives, the directors, are going to have that like first line of information. But maybe 1 or 2 weeks might pass before I speak with the director in our one-on-one. She has to remember that information and hold it true for those 2 weeks and make sure that nothing gets translated in a way that I'm receiving inaccurate information. And that can then affect studies, all of the studies that we're working on. And then this is kind of the most important point to me, is that these repeated breakdowns impact job satisfaction and morale. If you keep having to do rework, if you have a reduction in efficiency, if you feel like you're not being heard, if you feel like you're not really understanding what's being asked of you, it's really frustrating. And that can lead to burnout. And my goal here is, with these tools, obviously increase our ability to implement quality science, but also ensure that those implementing that science have a high job morale and satisfaction by not having to constantly rework. And of course, if things are implemented poorly, there are financial and scientific consequences that follow. That cannot be overstated. It's really important, but that's more downstream. We have some objectives for this workshop. We want to understand why miscommunication is predictable. We know it's going to happen. It happens every single day. I hope to share with you why that occurs, and identify communication bottlenecks within your own workflows. Whether you work in a core, a department, a singular lab space, whatever that might be, maybe you're a community engagement coordinator, there is still shared communication and there is breakdown over time. I hope that we can identify together where those breakdowns occur so that we can adjust, apply tools, and ensure that implementation is more successful. And then most importantly, I want you to leave with practical strategies to strengthen coordination. Coordination within your team, coordination amongst multiple teams. And then also just feel better about yourself and the work that you're doing. I'm going to play a video here. It's going to take a quick second to load. The audio is going to come from my computer. It's going to play loudly, so it should be okay. One thing I want you to do, this is an expert in a scientific field, right? You often hear scientific talks, and they're important work. I'm going to quiz you on the information that's in this. It's a field that none of you are likely experts in. But I want us to talk about it afterwards because I want to understand how you feel and what you were able to glean from this really revolutionary technology that he's about to present.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of SciShow Breaking News. For many years, research has been proceeding on a line of automotive products that establishes new standards for quality, technological leadership, and operating excellence. With the consumer market as an end goal, work has been proceeding on the crudely conceived idea of an instrument that would not only provide inverse reactive current for use in unilateral phase detractors, but would also be capable of automatically synchronizing cardinal gram meters. That's right, it's finally here. The retro proto-turbo encapsulator. Now, basically, the only new principle involved is that instead of power being generated by the relative motion of conductors and fluxes, it's produced by the modial interaction of magneto-reluctance and capacitive diractance. Now, the original machine had a base plate of pre-famulated amulite surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing in such a way that the two spurving bearings ran in direct line with a panometric fan. The lineup consisted simply of 6 hydrocoptic Marsal vanes so fitted to the amphipatient lunar wane shaft that side fumbling was effectively prevented. The main winding was of the normal lotus odaltoid type, placed in panendermic semi-boloid slots of the stator, every 7th conductor being connected by a non-reversible trimmy pipe to the differential girdle spring of the up end of the gram meters. Even cooler, whenever fluorescent square motion is required, it can also be employed in conjunction with the drawn reciprocation dingle arm to reduce sinusoidal declination. The retro proto-turbo encapsulator has now reached a high level of development and is being successfully used in the operation of Milford trunnions. Of course, more research must be done before the retro proto-turbo encapsulator can be brought to market, but this is both very promising and very exciting research. Thank you for watching this special report from SciShow Breaking News. If you have any questions or suggestions, we're down in the comments below and on Facebook and Twitter.
All right, who's ready for the quiz? Great. Do you want to?
No.
Explain to us what we just witnessed?
No, I cannot.
That revolutionary technology.
No, I cannot.
Please do not repeat the words girdle string.
Anyone glean any information from that?
There's a fan.
As a fan,
A dingle.
revolutionary, it's exciting. As a dingle arm, whatever that is,
It's combining two things.
combining two things is revolutionary though.
Magneto reluctance.
Has any of you ever been in a meeting? I'm not ashamed to admit this. My PI, superior, whatever, talks exactly like this. Even if it's the field that I'm in, I just have no idea what they just said. Has anyone ever experienced that?
Yeah. I just did with a high school student down there.
So what did we understand? We didn't understand much. I think we understood that it was important. Just as when our superior or someone is giving a scientific talk, you know what they're saying is potentially revolutionary, very exciting, meaningful to the field. But I'm supposed to take something from that and apply that in my work. Someone's presenting a research study and they're using incredibly complex neuroimaging acronyms and all this information about the newest developments. That applies directly to what I have to do, but I can't say I am trained in physics beyond my 2 college physics classes. But it's credible. It sounded. Tell you that it's not. It's a satirical skit. There's multiple versions. It goes back 20, 30 years ago to demonstrate how siloed we become in our own field. Again, that was supposed to be demonstrating an automotive expert, but we can become siloed in anything that we do, whether it's neuroimaging, data, regulatory. And then we try to communicate with people that aren't in that team, and we sound exactly like that. Obviously, we weren't very confident about what we were understanding. There were things we certainly didn't like hearing and hope we don't hear again. And we got a couple words. We got the pieces of it. But here's the important thing about study implementation. You can't just have pieces. You need to understand the whole picture. So, communication breakdown in complex systems. This is just always going to happen. Information naturally degrades across multiple handoffs. Imagine you were in that meeting with that automotive expert, and now you have to go to your staff and tell them what you just heard. Even if there were AI transcribed meeting minutes, that would be incredibly difficult. But this is what occurs in really complex research studies. We have roles that we take on, whether it's a project manager, whether it's neuroimaging, whether it's regulatory, clinical research, basic science, no matter what it is, we take on this role and we filter information through that role. You might have only have heard, let's not do an automotive example, but let's say a scientific presentation in your field of interest. You might only capture pieces of information that are directly relevant to your role. When I was listening to the presentations this morning, I focused more on any time they said communication structures or communication breakdowns. My mind naturally went to that because I've been thinking about it all day. I missed other parts, but that's what I focused on. That's what I was able to take away from it. And the numbers and conditions are dropped. This matters significantly when we're dealing with study protocols, when we're dealing with any sort of changes in IRBs, or even working with animal or cell culture models. Dropping this information is a tremendous consequence. And then we also have a mental model within a team. And it can become fragmented within the team and also across teams. Now, what is a mental model? So I like to use this example. I assembled some IKEA furniture not too long ago. I had the whole manual and it was a struggle. But imagine you have a team and several people are assembling that piece of furniture, but they only have a few pages of that manual. Now they think they have all of the information. They think they have the whole manual. They only have a few pages. It's going to lead to extreme frustration. They're likely not going to be able to figure it out. Not going to look like what's on the box for IKEA. And it's not going to come together. This is the problem when information flows through multiple handoffs. You can't sit in every single meeting that has to do with every single study that you're involved in. You can't be sitting in executive meetings. I'm a research assistant. I can't be in the executive meetings. I'm not in the core director meetings. That information has to be filtered and then shared. So I don't get the whole picture. I have to assume I do have the whole picture, and I have to carry out the research based off of my understanding. We're going to do an activity to demonstrate this. For those online, I have a virtual version of this activity, and I will guide you through that once I get everyone set up. We're already in nice little, what this is going to look like is we are going to play a scientific version of the game of telephone. To experience in real time how communication degrades. We're going to see, because I'm assuming each of us have different roles that we play, have different jobs, different titles. We're going to see how those roles and that filtering affects our understanding. And hopefully this will demonstrate to you the necessity of communication. So I had groups 4 more. I think the rows that we have are fine right now. For those online, give me 1 second. I'm going to hand out prompts. What this is going to look like is we are going to have a receiver. You can think of this person as almost the PI of the study. And then we're going to have people in between. And the receiver is going to have the prompt, read the prompt, hold on to the prompt, but then share what they read to the next person, so on and so on. And then there is a final receiver. We're going to assume this final receiver is a research assistant who is actively carrying out the study. Okay, so I'm going to hand out these prompts. And as I do, I want those online to view this prompt for the next 30 seconds. Okay, so everyone on the left is going to be on my left, the initial receiver. Read it, do not show to anyone, and you will pass along the message.
That person, the first person is not reading it to the next person. They're
They are
just
not. They have to
doing what they
read it,
can. Okay.
Understand it,
Yeah.
and then pass it on.
I
know.
the receiver. I have to
Yeah.
refuse that. Oh my God.
But her answer is dependent on.
Because I don't want to do it, because I love it.
Yeah, I missed this.
Monitoring the chat.
Once you're ready, you can just naturally flow down the line. I will say to those at the end, Shrela, you are included on this.
I'm monitoring the chat.
Okay.
Love a good activity though.
But that's okay. I will be asking for a volunteer or two to share the information contained within.
No con el papelito. Without the,
Go ahead and get started.
just tell her, what did you understand?
You can go ahead and
Understand?
pass on that information, your interpretation of what needs to be shared to the next person.
Sin papelito.
Just whisper. Read it, you just gotta.
Okay.
I can't even tell you and then read headsets everybody. We'll give it a try. So, oh my gosh, I don't know what this is.
He's following.
No,
the
there's.
law.
It used to be like a.
As you fill out
Further MRI. The data for change
some of the
something.
questions, patterns, words.
Or has to change something else.
Some more, but.
I'm trying to remember.
Yes.
That's what I understood. Because I had to go to the junk.
Okay.
Cognitive changing?
Okay.
I know, I was just thinking, what is it?
Oh my gosh.
It's happened
Let's
before.
try to fill out as many as possible.
That's my favorite too.
This J on, yeah.
It's okay.
We're not even gonna be on the same planet, never had the same conversation.
I know.
The amount of information on here.
Say that's like a paragraph.
It is.
I don't know. Like
6
4 details.
Okay.
Stand there.
We love to take notes.
I have one.
We handed out some too.
I would entertain it.
I'm so sorry. It's gonna be awful.
Thanks for the connection.
Sí, was the.
And a month prior to the MRI starting.
Oh, wow, there's this very.
Oh my goodness.
Ours has the word something in
I'm
it.
impressed. This has turned into a bit of a competition.
We had a few
Shorter connections.
Okay.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
Demonstration of your complexity.
You rip me down.
Right. So we are also called information. Yeah. In a meeting, but we can't always enact it right away. There's time in between. There's other tasks to do. There's more important things that take priority. Who can answer the
word communication.
word's communication? That's right.
Math is 161.
160.
One.
Yes, that's true.
Whoa, time out. How'd you do that?
Impressive.
I'm good at math.
Times 2, times 3, times 4.
3 times 7 is 21. 7 times 2
Oh,
is 14.
Down
Nine,
there. I
two,
thought you were talking about the
161.
pattern. Okay.
Oh, no.
Can anyone get the pattern?
Pattern looks like you multiply that by 2, then by 3, then by 4. Then by, I don't know, my math.
Oh, yeah.
This is like you just had a meeting. I had to do an Excel sheet. All right. Let's go through the answers. The riddle, a map, logic,
9.
pattern, 720. Word scramble, communication. Quick math,
161.
61. Mini riddle,
Needle.
needle. Who said that?
Sharayla.
Okay, research assistants. You're going to carry out this protocol amendment. What do you got to do?
What do I have to do?
Yeah, what do you have to do?
What I have to do is, I have to let the, we're gonna do MRIs,
Okay.
on people, and we need for them to have a cognitive test first. And so my job is to make sure that the cognitive test happens prior to us doing the MRI on our patients who are 70 or older.
When do we start? Right away?
I got no clue. We got to wait till we get that information to be.
Anyone else? Dare to try.
My poor research assistant had no chance in this because I could barely comprehend the whole thing myself.
All I knew is that there's a protocol change and people over 70 now need an MRI to detect something.
Oh.
All right.
But that's it.
Big reveal.
But yeah, we'll find out.
In person on the left, virtual on the right. So, a couple misconceptions. Everyone was already getting an MRI scan. What was added was a 10-minute cognitive assessment. 70 years or older. The change begins
10-minute
next month. And even the phrasing of next month is confusing. We're in the middle of the month. What is next month? Does that mean April 12th? Does that mean April 1st? It's unclear already. I gave you an unclear message on purpose. I didn't want anyone to get it right. And then there are actions required by each of the cores. Depending on what role you have, you might have attached more meaning to one of the updates, because I don't really need to know what the clinical core is doing, but I need to know I need to add a 10-minute buffer to scan appointments. Let's talk about this. On your experience, what details seem to be the most lost or changed as the message went through down the chain?
Specifics.
The specifics, which are kind of the most important thing. How does this reflect in real time what happens when protocol changes are communicated across teams? Does understanding degrade? Does it become more confusing? If I'm wrong, you can tell me.
Leads to frustrations.
Yeah.
Because the research assistant might get in trouble from the PI, but it's like this, they're saying that was what was communicated to me, so that was the best that I.
Like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
I'm trying my best. At which point, amongst the chain, initial receiver, people in the middle, and then the final receiver, would a structured communication tool would have been most helpful?
Right at the beginning.
Every point.
Exactly. This would have helped.
So that piece of paper was already structured as a verified communication tool called the one-page summary method. It contained exactly what was needed, nothing more. We're going to get to that later on in this presentation. But you're right, at every single point it would have been helpful. Now you could say, well, everything's written now. We have AI transcribed notes, we have Teams, we have email, but emails get buried. You forget where things are in Teams. Sometimes you can't even Teams someone depending on the collaboration, the partnership. And then there's also our own communication styles that we cannot neglect as we're talking about this. Some of us don't want to feel like we're imposing and ask. We don't want to make it seem like we don't understand. And that impacts every single team. There are introverts on every team, just as there are extroverts. There are those that won't ask questions. There are those that will. Structured tools make it so that everyone, no matter their personality or communication style, receives the correct message so that the study can be carried out accordingly. So I just want you to talk among yourselves. This is especially important. I don't know anyone's background in this room, what job title they have, or even your institution. I hope at this point, with what I've demonstrated, if you could take a minute and reflect in your environment, in your workflow, regardless of what you do, Where does information become unclear for you? What details in your job are most frequently lost or changed? And how does it affect your workload and ability? We can keep the same groups that we had for activity 1. And for those online, I would take a minute, maybe journal or just reflect silently on these 3 questions.
There's a lot of gaps.
Here's what we always do. Like something happens.
How about you? Do you have
My.
with your team?
I've been
You have
doing.
the
I'm
see.
of a current project and I would.
So I was
and because there's.
People will come to me and ask me,
And I know I'm gonna get.
Example, in this case, I can say, okay, it's a 30%. Yes.
They have multiple.
Month.
keep track, especially when you have multiple
Yeah.
projects.
I don't know, but I don't know, very.
So-
I think.
Where a checklist comes in.
Yeah, see, and I feel like that happens with our current study and then like.
I'm still gotta do the
I-
checklist.
Somebody's got to do the checklist.
Message me on Teams.
But then you have the checklist to
available
refer
on
back
Teams,
to,
and
or
it's like you're in the
some
middle of
sort
a
of-
participant appointment. And so then when we talk about it afterwards, I feel like she
I'm
has like frustrations with how
system
I don't want
changes
it handled.
that
So
are
it was like, well, I
fast and
feel
furious.
you, and I
And
made the
then
decision.
My whole idea, like
on
one
what I
KU,
knew
where
and
we're all
what I
supposed
thought
to be
was
talking to each other, and
If you disagree with it, but you were so, I think
the
it's talked
systems
to
that
me,
they're setting
so.
up are complicated.
I'll tell you what to do.
I'm only getting bits of that.
Getting bits and
It out, but you
little
don't.
pieces of
I like that
information
happened.
filtered through us. And
It wasn't me, but it.
travel is
changed for my
changing,
cousin.
New
IRB
portal.
is changing. There's a new
Quick
portal
travel.
for this, but
Kind of
Can't bring
upset.
your laptops internationally.
yeah, yeah.
I feel like
And-
I made the right decision for
But then,
what
you know,
we are given in
I,
front
at
of
the
me at
KU
the time.
campus, can't access things at the med campus. Like it's
You can see that.
that.
You get a box subscription for like $300 a month if you want to communicate with Dr. Lapping over at KUMC.
Getting in terms of like.
And then I pay out of my own pocket.
Yes, you do.
Find.
I feel like it's timing.
Oh,
cards.
Yes, the questions, yeah, I work a lot with undergraduate.
We did
research
like a
too.
leadership training and one of, I think.
Graduate researchers, so I team, I have them working.
It's like after,
Programs.
we usually follow.
Even if it is on paper,
Follow up with an email.
you might read it differently than I do.
This is like the things, but I feel like the way that my brother is, based off what I know about her.
You might be better.
But I'm like, I don't think she would.
Yeah, your
System
system
change
church.
That.
Happening a lot.
Let me
Like,
buy
I feel like it would be in her email, but it
I like
wouldn't
the
be like.
checklist, I think a quick
So it's like, do I go through all that?
Have a
What am I
manual
doing?
procedure.
Um,
That's 200.
Right, or it's like she has like some resentment of like, I didn't.
Are you gonna read the whole
to
thing?
Tell me.
She's actually have a bad habit. I actually read I actually read the entire, like,
Me and her.
Yeah.
Like, I'm more like, I need pictures and everything. And related, she's more abstract, she's well under that.
I have a.
So I know we had, I mean, this is storytelling. This is storytelling. And, you know, and it's whatever party you're in, it's going to have to.
Guys across all my teams, but. Your version of the story is slightly different
IRB,
than
it's
someone
like
else's.
an IRB
Pretty
address.
hilarious, actually.
So I try to understand the complex language of the regulatory coordinator.
Sometimes they are, that's really.
Protocol.
We're telling a
Do I now
story
read?
that we want them to
IRB?
understand our interpretation of the
Understand what I need to.
Yeah.
So it's like, because they already are down.
What style they are written in the IRB. IBC, it's people of the IBC. Someone write. Public is the grant.
Absolutely. In detail.
That is a big one. That just has some discomfort.
Okay.
You're like, what's the understanding? To make your notes.
Here's the point. Do you find dissemination? International level.
There was a person.
Am I talking to a patient? Am I talking to a server? Am I talking to another provider? Researcher?
mad at
I need to come up with
she had to
ways to disseminate
research when I was
to make sure to get the point.
there's some that, zone out or, even though regimen was good to me, and I was like, she was doing
We'll
that.
wrap up in 10 minutes.
It's done.
It's totally understandable.
You.
I can see your,
Even
your information you're even,
A lot of ways, things are clear. Relationship with
who decides? We're making all these changes. I'm only gonna tell you 3.
Track of the details, the organizational aspect, everything on TV.
Like, seriously, reading this. I mean,
And I feel like it would lead to gaslight. Where all of a sudden, someone could be like, why?
we would decide.
And we're like, but we never said like fake deadline.
Yeah.
So like, I did like, I've been working on
You're
years
like,
like, just kind of like,
boxes, check boxes.
You don't need to know what
Color.
the data code
expectation
starts here.
wasn't.
Or maybe I do because
Or
that's
like the timing, yeah, but if you want this by this, like, and I would just gaslighted one of my other colleagues because like she was gonna do it so. I'm still going through the manuscripts on, which has taken her a long time to get through the manuscripts, but she's also not working the understanding part, so she's just like.
he's doing a fantastic job.
I feel like the frustration has been building up over time, and again, there's never been like.
What I find when I'm working
And
on.
then all of a sudden she like gaslighted her and was like,
Find this
it's
an
not done
assignment
by this date.
So I put all the details in there and then they don't know how to do it.
Nobody
They're
reads
not
the
reading the
syllabus.
details.
Or they're putting it through ChatGPT and saying.
What does this
"What
tell
this
you to
say?"
do?
Yes.
I'm so glad I'm not teaching anymore.
Yeah, probably you are.
The whole, I heard a lot of.
It's somewhere in nephrology though, yeah.
And I would love if anyone would be willing to share.
Skills for that. Yeah, you're training, you're hiring,
You're
all these
trained,
things.
too.
I can share
It's
one
so
of the
it's
things
like-
that sticks with me from our conversation. What details are most important and how do we keep track of the little details, but also the big details?
No.
You have details that are
How
important.
do you
Over
manage?
multi- yeah,
How do you
like all of a
manage
sudden
like
I'm
Details might
multi-layers?
not be important to someone else.
Someone else.
So determining what
You
is
don't want the
important,
situation where you're like.
that's also.
What's essential to stay in the protocol? That's the way we look at it.
Jasmine?
It's like, I would say to piggyback off of that, I think it depends on how big your research team is. Because the bigger the research team, there might be sub-teams within the broader research team that might have separate meetings. So, things that are discussed in those meetings, it's kind of like what details are important for the broader research team to know versus what your specific specialized role is in that team that may be happening in sub meetings. Yeah, so it can be difficult to
Exactly.
figure out what's.
I mean, just as an example, Jasmine and Dr. Loving are working on this huge imaging study. So they meet with their team. Our imaging core, we meet separately. And then every month we meet together. When information needs to be shared, sometimes it's really confusing and I'm the one who makes the meeting agenda. Do we discuss the latest updates from the National Coordinating Center about this study? We discuss problems within the institution that are affecting our ability to carry out the study. Do we talk about our experiences with patient cancellation and incurring costs to, certain injectables not being able to be used because a patient doesn't make it in time? What do we talk about in this limited time that we have together? Any other insights?
One thing that Jasmine and I were talking about is it really depends on your audience, what information you're delivering, never mind. What, first you have to figure out what you received and then who you're delivering it to and why.
That's exactly true. And that's why, when I'm giving this presentation, there's no blame on anyone within the chain of communication. Because think about that initial receiver in activity 1, the pressure on you to determine what do I remember? What is most important? What do I need to share? That's a lot of pressure. And then you have other things going on throughout the day. So it's not, the blame's on the first person. There's no blame at all. This is just really complicated work now doing. And as it goes through the chain of command, information gets lost. One really important thing that I heard was it's helpful to have things written down. But some studies, like the one I just referenced, I looked at their manual of procedures. I think it's over 200 pages. Do I read all of that? I don't need all of that. I only need one piece of that. How do I find that one piece? How do I determine what's important? You can write everything down, have everything in writing, but that's not necessarily effective because you're putting so much work on yourself or a research assistant or the PI to say, hey, you need to read everything. It's just not effective. We have another video. This is a more general video that'll kind of guide us into the rest of the segment as we talk about tools. For those online, again, the link will be sent.
It's in the chat now.
It's in the chat now. There we go.
Have you ever talked with a friend about a problem, only to realize that he just doesn't seem to grasp why the issue is so important to you? Have you ever presented an idea to a group and it's met with utter confusion? Or maybe you've been in an argument when the other person suddenly accuses you of not listening to what they're saying at all. What's going on here? The answer is miscommunication. And in some form or another, we've all experienced it. It can lead to confusion, animosity, misunderstanding, or even crashing a multi-million-dollar probe into the surface of Mars. The fact is, even when face-to-face with another person in the very same room and speaking the same language, human communication is incredibly complex. But the good news is that a basic understanding of what happens when we communicate can help us prevent miscommunication. For decades, researchers have asked what happens when we communicate. One interpretation, called the transmission model, views communication as a message that moves directly from one person to another, similar to someone tossing a ball and walking away. But in reality, this simplistic model doesn't account for communication's complexity. Enter the transactional model, which acknowledges the many added challenges of communicating. With this model, it's more accurate to think of communication between people as a game of catch. As we communicate our message, we receive feedback from the other party. Through the transaction, we create meaning together. But from this exchange, further complications arise. It's not like the Star Trek universe, where some characters can Vulcan mind meld, fully sharing thoughts and feelings. As humans, we can't help but send and receive messages through our own subjective lenses. When communicating, one person expresses her interpretation of a message, and the person she's communicating with hears his own interpretation of that message. Our perceptual filters continually shift meanings and interpretations. Remember that game of catch? Imagine it with a lump of clay. As each person touches it, they shape it to fit their own unique perceptions based on any number of variables, like knowledge, past experience, age, race, gender, ethnicity, religion, or family background. Simultaneously, every person interprets the message they receive based on their relationship with the other person and their unique understanding of the semantics and connotations of the exact words being used. They could also be distracted by other stimuli, such as traffic or a growling stomach. Even confusion might cloud their understanding. And by adding more people into a conversation, each with their own subjectivities, the complexity of communication grows exponentially. So as the
All right, I'm gonna cut it off there because it goes into some basic tools. But that's my job. To teach you some basic tools. We're gonna also push through the micro reset just so that we can get to the most exciting part. I was a little disappointed that there were no Star Trek fans in here.
Oh, yeah.
I knew what it was referring to.
Gotcha.
There'd be some laughs. I don't know. I thought it would be easier if you could just do that. Or in Harry Potter, when you can pull out the memory.
Mm.
That would be nice too. Okay, we've demonstrated the problem. We've seen it in real time. What is there to do about it? Now, I have a resource guide that I'll provide at the end of the presentation. Also a QR code where you can email me to receive it that has hundreds of tools available. The National Cancer Institute has put this together. There's also something called Team Steps, which is all about team training for effective science. But I pulled 4 tools from those resources and tools that I have already implemented in my daily workflow And that's what I plan to share with you today. And the most important thing, small structural changes. We cannot make a 200-page manual of procedures and have every single person read it. We cannot attend every meeting that has anything to do with the study. It would take way too much time and reduce efficiency. These are just small things that can reduce breakdown. So similar to what the protocol looked like that you received or saw online, a one-page change summary. This is a brief, structured update when any changes occur. It details what changed, very plain and clear language. Who is affected? It has nothing to do with me. It'd be nice to read, but I can go in the trash pile of my Outlook. If it has to do with me, I needed to say exactly what is expected of me, what the action is required, and then when it begins. Remember the activity I said next month? That was already confusing, already going to be misleading, and that would likely cause conflict. So this is something that if you feel comfortable, you can ask your supervisor to do, or what I do is I get information and I make the change summary myself, and then I send it back to my boss and I say, is this what you want me to do? That gives her the opportunity to clarify and correct. We have a structured handoff with confirmation. This is done beautifully in clinical settings, even especially here at Children's Mercy. Whenever there's a group of doctors that come in, they take over from another group of doctors, and it's imperative that the most important patient information is handed off. There's questions that go back and forth, and they ensure that the new team of doctors coming in has a firm understanding of what is expected of them and the patients that need the most oversight throughout the rest of the day. So what this looks like is someone states critical information. The receiver confirms the key details. It's not just, yes, I heard you. Yes, I got that. Or hoping that it's going to show up in the meeting minutes. This is what I heard. Is this correct? If it's not correct, it goes back to the initial receiver, and it goes back and forth until there's a firm understanding between the two. This is really important to me, clarified ownership. This helps if you have a action item list within your meeting minutes where you can specifically designate someone responsible for a task. There's a lot of meetings that I'm in that I get done with and I'm like, is that me or my coworker supposed to send that email? Was that me or my coworker that's supposed to, send that Excel sheet? It's unclear. So it's important, besides, who executes and who needs to be informed. Going back to that protocol amendment, if I heard that information, it's imperative that I would reach out to the other cores involved and make sure that they knew that information. And this just needs to happen on a daily basis, a post-change debrief. After anything changes in a study, whether again it's cell lines or animal models or in clinical research, it's important that you identify what was unclear and adjust from there. Because again, these are structural problems. These will continue, and you just need to keep refining your communication strategies and the tools that you use to limit the problems that it causes. Here's an example of a one-page change summary. Again, this is exactly what was given to you, except with an actual date, a specified date, April 12th, not next month. And so I would send this to my supervisor. She would say, yep, you got it, or no, actually, the clinical team also does the scan timing because they already do the scheduling. It's like, oh, I got that wrong. Okay, I understand now. If I didn't do that, I would have carried it out, caused issues with scheduling, caused issues with the participants, and that would have downstream consequences. What changed? Who is affected? Required action, effective date. It's called a one page, not even a page. I printed these off just on a third of a page. It's very quick, to the point. That is the goal. A structured handoff and confirmation, something unstructured. Participants over 70 need an assessment now. Okay, I can do that. I can carry that out. But that's not right. Sender sends the information. This could be in an email. This could be verbally. Then I'm typically the receiver. State that I will update scheduling templates for participants 70 and up, starting April 12th, and add a 10-minute buffer before their MRI. But it doesn't stop there. Then the sender can say, correct, thank you, or that wasn't correct. Either I got the information wrong or you misinterpret, again, there's no blame. It's just a very quick opportunity to make sure you have the details before spending hours of work carrying out the study. So we don't exactly have time for this activity, but feel free to take the pencil and the paper. I'm going to show you what would be helpful if you have time later today. This is a way to identify areas in your workflow, in your operations, that might be fragile in terms of handoffs. It's always important, and not a lot of people do this, actually draw out how information flows. Now, you don't need to start all the way up at the top with the CEO or the chancellor, but who is really making the decisions? And so I went ahead and did this. Mine looks a bit like this. There's an executive meeting that informs the core leaders, but then the core leaders have their own role and they translate, interpret. The core leader has a core meeting with assistant directors, team discussion, but I'm also meeting one-on-one with the core leader. I get action items from the core meetings and I'm getting action items from the core leader. That's fragile. That's where things can become misconstrued. There's time between each of these meetings. If something's decided, do I go based off of date? What was decided most recently? Well, you said in the one-on-one that my coworker was responsible for this, but now in the core meeting, I'm responsible. This is where problems tend to arise, and I'm speaking from experience. So identifying that fragile handoff, and then coming up with a mitigation example that you feel comfortable and confident acting out. So for me, it was clarify ownership and providing that brief written summary. I need to know who is responsible for this task because I'll go ahead and do it. But again, I don't want to have to do rework. I don't want us both doing the task. So I really encourage you today, I'm sorry we don't have time, to just map out. If you haven't done this before, you'll kind of be shocked just how complicated it is. There's so many people, there's already about 10 people in the executive meeting. And then there's the core leader, and then our core meetings have 10 to 12 people. Then the one-on-one, each of those points, communication can be degraded, and it's important to have these communication tools to assist you. So we'll skip the debrief, but it's important to think about if you map out this communication workflow, what types of bottlenecks occur that might affect what strategies you choose to mitigate. At what point do things become unclear? And again, what small changes did you identify that can realistically improve communication? Because we are already, I'm gonna say it, we're overworked. We work a lot. We work really hard. It would be foolish for me to come up here and give you a whole bunch of tools that take a ton of your time. It wouldn't be useful. These are meant to be small adjustments that have huge impact. So what I hope to take away from today is that these challenges are systemic. It's a consequence of the increasing complexity of science. It's not personal. It's not your personality. It's not whether you're introverted or extroverted. It's not because you're not listening well or not remembering well. It's just a systemic problem that will always occur. So it requires more structure to mitigate those problems. And hopefully with the small structural adjustments, it can strengthen implementation. And I also hope that research staff, research faculty feel, anyone in this room, empowered to initiate these meaningful improvements within their own research. So I have some time for questions. I also have a resource guide, but then you can scan the QR code and I can send you an electronic guide as well. I highly recommend, I included the sources from the next steps, where they have hundreds of tools for you to use, all validated in research that are being used within teams. The QR code will simply open up a pre-written email and you can send it right away.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm available for any questions, but thank you so much for being a great audience, for participating in the discussion, for doing the telephone. I was a little bit worried about that activity. Didn't know how much people would be into it, but I think it was great, and I'm available for any questions for the next 4 minutes.
I told these guys that I posted a story online after the tornado about my grandparents lost everything in a tornado in 1956.
My goodness, I'm so sorry.
And so I posted this story, but my cousin in Germany, she posted, hey, that's not, did we have the same grandparents? That wasn't the story I heard. And then another cousin popped up and said, that's not the story I heard either. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny.
These communication challenges can occur
Oh, yeah, well, that's over years. and-
personally.
Yeah,
You know, it's not just limited to our work.
yeah.
That's something important to recognize. These tools can be applied anywhere.
These are our daily stories.
They are.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing. Anyone else?
Just thanks for sharing all this. Great.
Yes.
Well, we were talking that it's like, for example, I feel like me and my PI have different styles. Like I'm more concrete and need like specific details, and like this 1-page summary would be great for somebody like me and like what I hope to carry on as a PI. But she operates differently. I mean, she's more abstract and, you know, and those kind of things, and she thrives under that. But I don't. So then it's like, you know, in those situations, like how do you come to kind of a middle ground?
Well, that's a great question, and it's exactly how, you know, the lab I'm in, the core I'm in is set up. I love details. I love rules. I love SOPs. I make all of the SOPs and workflows. I'm just obsessed with it. The core director, she is a thinker. She's very intellectual, thinks about theoretical frameworks. Okay, but I'm gonna need some numbers. I need the details. That's why I took it upon myself to start doing the brief 1-page summaries. It really requires no work from her. She does have to read it over and confirm that I have the correct understanding, but I'm taking the ownership of that. Even that confirmation and handoff, I think that's really important and really only requires them to say, correct, thank you, or actually you have this incorrect. It's not this exact number, procedure, date, it's this other date. That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was more like if it would be read. Or it's like one of those things that like I could send in an email, but I don't know if it would be like something that was read like now or like a month from now, or you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I would encourage you to look at some of the other structured tools that are available in the handout. There might be something that is more specific. Also a great book about it sounds like it's some maybe remote work.
Not really. I mean, there's flexibility for like working remote, but yeah.
I always, if you have the opportunity for those informal, just popping into the office, those are so important.
Yeah.
Mitigate any misunderstanding immediately.
Yeah.
And I've talked to PIs about this. I felt insecure about asking so many questions. And they want the question. It's their study. They want it implemented how they designed it. And so even if you ask the same question 5, 10 times, that's better than getting it wrong. Yeah. They're willing to. I've never had a PI have them get mad at me for that. Okay. On to the next thing. Thank you, everyone. I hope.